On this episode of the Irish History Boys, we examine the sad history of sectarian attacks, intimidation and murder on the streets of Belfast, and one particular incident that prompted a Church of Ireland bishop to plead with Protestants to love their neighbours. That's back in 1975. We also consider the dubious benefits of Ireland's upper chambers, north and south, and we recall the strange case of the kidnapping of US heiress, that's quite hard to say, isn't it? Heiress Patty Hearst, granddaughter of the man who inspired Orson Welles' classic Citizen Kane.
September the 19th, 1975. Help threatened Craigah Catholics. Church of Ireland Bishop pleads. The Church of Ireland Bishop of Down and Connor, the Right Reverend George Quinn, yesterday appealed to the people of the Craigah area of Belfast to support and help Catholic neighbours who feel threatened or intimidated. His call followed the murder of 29-year-old Mr. Brendan Patrick Doran, a Catholic, of Delamount Park. He was shot 4 times in the head minutes after he opened Alan's newsagent's shop, Greenway Estate, Craigah, where he was a manager. His mother Mary was at home about 200 yards away and heard the shots that killed her son. At the time, she did not realise the significance of the shooting. "I just could not believe it," she said. "He never did anyone any harm. He was a good boy. It is all so senseless." Mr. Doran's wife, Eilish, 29, who was shortly expecting her first child, said, "My husband was a good man. He was not involved in any kind of trouble. He never did anyone any harm." Bishop Quinn expressed his horror at the latest murder and called on all responsible people to help the police and security forces to bring to justice those who commit such outrages.
Hello, you're listening to the Irish History Boys podcast with me, Tim McGarry, and my very good friend. You just interrupted me there. I was going to give you a big build-up. Cormac Moore, beautifully read there, Cormac. This is a very serious piece, but I just want to tell the listeners that before you read it, you didn't know how to pronounce Craigah because you're from the south.
Did you not hear me say Craigah?
You said Craigag. You were about to say Craigag, only we stopped you. Well, thankfully, we stopped you. Welcome to the Irish History Boys, where we're discussing moments from the Irish news reports from 1975 and 1925. This is another sad case. 1975, intimidation of Catholics in the Craigah area, and the Church of Ireland bishop basically pleading with people to help their Catholic neighbours, because this is one of those mixed areas. And 75 is a pretty horrendous year in the Troubles. The bizarre thing about 1975 is that technically it was the IRA were on ceasefire.
Yeah. Well, for most of it, yeah.
For most of it, from February 75, but the violence, I think it comes in about 3rd or 4th worst year of the Troubles in terms of deaths. I think over 260 people were killed, and loyalists and Republicans were killing each other on, free. Basically, they were blowing up pubs. They were attacking each other. There were assassinations. There was murder, and it was one of those horrendous years. And this is just one of those articles that, in the middle of September, here we are, near the end of 75, and there's kind of pleading for some kind of sanity from people, and it probably fell on deaf ears.
Well, although I was going to pronounce it as Craigag, I have heard of Craigah before, or at least I've written it, or I've seen it in some research I've done on. That's the biggest kind of First World War veterans estate, isn't it? There was a lot of First World War houses that were built. It's the biggest in the north anyway, because I've done research on Colester in Dublin, which is the biggest. There's about 250 houses built for First World War veterans in Colester, and I think Craigah is the biggest in the north, as far as I know. So it was Craigah, yeah. It was it was a mixed area, but there was definitely more Protestants in the area than Catholics, and what this informs us is about this displacement of people, the minorities in mixed areas, so that they became homogeneous areas pretty much, and that was happening from the late 60s.
From 1969. We know about the burnings out in the lower falls and people like that, and the huge numbers of people who had to flee their homes in the early days of the Troubles. But this continued entirely. God, it's sad to say it continues even to this day. Where there are certain areas where people are intimidated out of their homes because of their religion,
or now their race.
Exactly. So 75 was an odd year because, as I say, the IRA were technically on ceasefire from February 1975, but they still carried out attacks all over the north.
Yeah.
There were all sorts of horrible incidents. I think earlier that month was the Tullyvallen incident, where the IRA killed 5 Orangemen in a hall. I think it was in South Armagh. I think Tullyvallen is. I think it was, and I remember because we did a program called Pop Goes Northern Ireland. And actually, for the purposes of this, I kind of rewatched it and I kind of forget. It's just relentless. It's just one horrible incident after the other. Tullyvallen was one of those incidents which is kind of, it was shocked everybody. Just the Orange men were just minding their own business in their Orange Hall and just all shot because they were Orange men. There was a massive protest led by the Passmore, I think it was the head of the Orange Order at the time, and he was at a very good, at a rally, was saying, pleading to Protestants as well, like you can't justify the murder of these Orange men, but you can't then justify the murder of innocent Catholics as well. Yeah. But the spiral just continued and continued, and in fact, as we know, in 1976, it actually gets worse, which is shocking.
Yeah, well. and Lenny Murphy was let out.
Yes, the Shankill Butcher.
After killing someone who was a witness to his, he used cyanide, I think, to kill a prisoner who was going to spill the beans on him, and he gets out. And then, and I think one of the first kind of incidents involving him after he gets out is around this time as well. You know, where there's on between the Shankill and Falls Road, there's in a wine shop 4 Catholics just brutally killed. He kills 3 of them personally. Yeah. So the first Shankill Butcher murder basically is only a couple of months away from here, you know. So
and then September. Yeah, we're talking September 1975. And then a couple of months, 76. You have the Reevy murders in South Armagh, the Kings Mill massacre and stuff like that. So this was happening.
And obviously the Miami show band massacre that just happened at the end of July as well. So there was a lot of sectarian killings happening. You know,
it was a miserable period in our history, and I think part of the reason I think it was the lack of any political movement whatsoever. We know the convention is happening at the minute. 1973. 74, the Sunningdale Agreement tried to have a power-sharing government in Northern Ireland with a Council of Ireland. That collapsed as a result of the UWC strike of May 1974. So in 1975, the British government said, well, we'll have a convention and get the political parties around the table to try and sort out some sort of government for Northern Ireland, and they couldn't reach any agreement because unionists basically insisted on majority rule and rejected any notion of sharing power, even with the SDLP, which was kind of...
Well, what struck me about his art and why I included it on this day was this whole notion of displacement that happened, and because you got a Church of Ireland bishop actually saying to Protestant neighbours in Craigah, saying, look after your Catholic neighbours, you know, like, stop this intimidation. It may have fallen on deaf ears, and it wasn't just there definitely were more Catholics who were removed from their homes, who became refugees. You know, now I think at the time the word refugee meant if you crossed an international boundary, right? And that's since been changed, because most people didn't actually go across the border or go to England. They actually went to other what were seen as safer areas. You know, where often on couches, often where people they knew, say in nationalist majority nationalist areas or majority unionist areas. But it's kind of an area that hasn't really been discussed, is it? You know, in terms of the conflict. I know there was a book by Neil Gillard Martin and Brendan Kieran Brown recently about
internal displacement, effectively.
Internal displacement, and it was actually a really good book in terms of looked at. It did loads of oral interviews of people affected. So and it was cross community, different geographical areas. You know, not just Belfast or Derry, but you know, places like Newry or Dungannon or wherever they felt there was a kind of big movements of kind of minority people, whether it's Protestant or Catholics.
I was only young. I was only 10 at the time, but as growing up, everybody in the north had a story about people who were removed from their houses or had to flee their houses or had to go to different areas, and that has an effect on people. You think of something like the story of, say, Bobby Sands, for instance, who was from Rathcoole, originally, and ended up in Twinbrook, and there were people displaced, and did that affect people?
Rathcoole is one of the first areas, isn't it?
Yeah, Rathcoole is a well-known loyalist estate now, but I think in the early days it was quite mixed.
That's the thing. Before the Troubles, there actually were
there were a
lot of mixed areas that were coexisted quite comfortably. Yeah. So the Troubles really had a massive impact on kind of segregating areas in the north. Do you remember, like, you were too young, obviously, before the Troubles to
Thank you very much. Yes, I
Well,
was too young.
You do say what you said you were 10 at the time.
Yeah, so I was born in
you know,
1964.
you were
so
5 in 69. You know,
Yeah, and I wasn't as tuned into the political situation as a
course,
10-year-old.
yeah.
Though I do remember the lights going out during the UWC strike and having to do
Yeah.
my homework by candlelight.
or did you
But
just do it and said you couldn't do it because there's no light?
no, we couldn't get away with that. You see,
What?
the Christian Brothers they said, no, you
Oh,
have to do your
yeah.
11 plus, my friend.
Well, we're going back to another episode there. We're getting a good thump.
Yeah, I passed my 11 plus despite the UWC strike, the efforts of loyalists to stop me.
Yeah.
I got my 11 plus. But no, it's obviously very serious stuff. But the 75 is just one of those years that you just kind of despair. You think this is never going to end.
Yeah.
There's no hope politically. The convention collapses and it leaves a vacuum. And funny, in the Pop Goes Northern Ireland show that we do, you know, the Jerry Fitt is on saying basically that when the convention does collapse, you know, this is leaving the space open for extremists on both sides.
Yeah.
The IRA can go, well, there's nobody. Yeah, this is a failed state. You know, this is just an orange state. We're going to continue our struggle. And loyalist paramilitaries who were bizarrely, there was the whole footage. We have footage of loyalist paramilitaries going up to Stormont. Literally, the leaders of loyalists going up to Stormont. Yeah.
The UVF was only proscribed.
Yeah.
It had been deproscribed in '74 by Marilyn Rees, and then it was reproscribed in October '75. Amazingly, like it's amazing when you think about it, all of the sectarian killings they're involved in that period from '74 to '75. You know, and yet we thought that there was a chance that they wanted peace, so we
a BBC
outlawed them.
There's a BBC documentary made just before they were prescribed, and the BBC documentary goes to a meeting of the UVF, all these guys in balaclavas with guns, basically training other UVF members and talking about going across the border and finding any Republicans and take them out and not take them back to the north and all of that sort of stuff. And this is
when they
openly, they're wearing balaclavas.
When they meant Republicans, you know, they didn't just mean people who were in the IRA.
Well, that's the other thing, the indiscriminate nature of this. This is, you know, people, you know, spraying bars or blowing up bars, you know, it was the vast majority of the people who were killed were civilians.
Absolutely,
Of the few incidents of UVF men and IRA men blowing themselves up, but most of the vast majority of people were just completely innocent.
And obviously, those displaced, on the whole, generally were innocent as well, and civilians. You know, but it does like the North's history before partition, everything. There's this whole story of displacement has always been there. You know, it was now, as we said, you know, before the Troubles, there were actually quite a lot of mixed areas where people happily coexisted. And I'm sure there were some tensions, but on the whole, nowhere near as bad as it became. But in the early 20s, of course, there was a huge amount of expulsions, people being forced out of their houses, burned out of their homes, removed from their jobs. That's in many ways that's what started the sectarian violence in July 1920. You know, for that whole wave of sectarian violence in Belfast, in particular, from summer of 1920 up to summer 22. A lot of it was based on people being thrown out of their jobs, thrown out of their homes, businesses burned. All of this happened.
It's been going on from the 1880s. Effectively, there were always sectarian riots and displacement of people. I think it was Andrew Boyd wrote the book. It was Holy War in Belfast, which is basically about the sectarian.
Alan Parkinson, was it? Or,
no, Andrew Boyd. It was,
no, the Holy War and
Holy War in Belfast.
Yeah. I know Alan Parkinson, something in our news as well called Holy War.
Right.
But yeah, look, there's. Yeah, it's always been a part of the North's history, and sadly, it's today.
Yeah.
Like recently, only a couple of weeks ago, like there was a car park near McDonald's there, and in East Belfast, and they were attacking basically a delivery driver.
Yeah.
You know, and we saw what happened in Ballymena this summer as well. So it's kind of changed a bit. Yet, like Catholics are still intimidated, and Protestants are intimidated as well. If you look at, say, in Derry, say in the Water side, I think there was in the early 70s there was thousands of Protestants. In the Water side. Now there's less than 100.
Little enclave called the Fountain. Left on that side of the. Of the river.
The Newry as well. Like there were a lot of Protestants that felt intimidated. Actually, had to leave border areas. You know, there was felt there wasn't protection there. Now, I think what a lot of Catholics would have said definitely was that not only did the state ignore this, but they seem to be active participants in allowing this to happen. That would have been a lot of testimonies of people who were from the Catholic side would have claimed about this displacement. But it's still a raw sore, and it's kind of forgotten about the whole legacy question. Now, obviously, there's I don't want to talk about hierarchy of victims or anything like that, you know, but Can you imagine being uprooted from where you were born, where your family are from, and never to go back there again? Can you imagine how traumatic that would be for anyone?
And it creates sectarian enclaves. There are whole areas that are Catholic and whole areas that are Protestant, and that's still, we still have the peace walls.
We have peace walls.
We still have the peace walls, and we still have people being intimidated out of their homes even today, which is kind of tragic. But again, the thing about 75 is that it's one of those hopeless periods that you think this is just going to go on and on. I mean, there's no political movement again, even an attempt at a political movement until the early 80s, when Jim Pryor was it? He under the Tories they tried rolling devolution. But the unionists at the convention rejected any notion of power sharing. So there was a complete political vacuum in which the Loyalists and the Republican paramilitary said, we'll sort this out ourselves.
We'll fill the vacuum.
Yeah.
As I say,
Terrible. Yeah. Well, that cheers us up, rightly.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Senates, the Senates of North and South.
Yes.
Because I found this interesting. This from September the 18th, 1925.
Right.
Dullest election. General apathy in Free State Senate contest. The first Free State senatorial election and the largest election ever held under proportional representation took place yesterday. There were 76 candidates for 19 vacancies, 4 for each seat, and the whole of the Free State was one constituency with 1,315,900 electors. The result will not be finally declared until December, but a rough indication of the election verdict will be available from the first preference returns within a few days. Reports from the provinces after the closing of polling last night show that the voting was exceptionally small. Even allowing for the abstention of the Republican element, whose leaders had urged him to boycott the election, the number who took the trouble to go to the polling stations was much less than expected. And I actually, what was interesting here to say as well, that the enormous dimension of the ballot paper.
Yes.
Imagine 76 names on a ballot paper. Imagine trying to get through all of that. And it's proportional representation as well. So it's not just about, you can go down 1 to 76.
You go, really?
Single
you go,
transferable vote.
I don't know whether to give Cormac Moore 50,
75 or 76.
No, I was going to give you 53 or 54.
I was going to give you 75, 76.
Right, so, that's a long ballot paper. And they did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, it was.
PR. PR, right.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine counting that as well, the transfers.
Yes, I think there's
absolute nightmare.
The bottom of the article says the Derry correspondent says an extraordinary apathy was shown in Donegal. Many people were actually unaware of the election, and it is estimated that not more than 10% of the electorate polled. Now, that's not good if you're standing for election. Only 10% of the people bother to come out and vote.
Well, but I don't know if you remember. You probably don't. You've been a partitionist, that.
Whoa! What? Sorry.
In terms of culture, Tim. Do you remember the referendum in 2013 to abolish the Shannet in the Republic?
No, I don't remember.
See, I proved my point. I proved my point.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
In 2013, the Fine Gael Labour government wanted to abolish Shannon.
Do you remember all the Northern Ireland Assembly elections that you could?
Oh, they're so riveting. Of course I do.
So I didn't.
How couldn't I? Yeah.
So there was a referendum to abolish the Senate.
And it failed.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think most people definitely want Shannon to be reformed.
Right.
But they didn't. They felt that reform was better than actually totally abolishing.
So okay.
Even though it's not really a check on the Dáil, it still is nice to have it.
Well, excuse my six-county ignorance, but what is it, like a House of Lords situation? Do they examine legislation and can they send it back to the Dáil and say, no, you need to fix that, or what?
Yeah, they can withhold it for 90 days.
Right.
They can block it from it become a law in 90 days, but that's the height of it.
Right.
And they can make recommendations and all of that, and they can debate legislation.
Right.
But,
right.
And obviously the electorate is very different than.
Well, I was just going to say that after this election, when nobody wanted to vote, they decided not to have a full democratic election for the Senate.
Yeah,
so
not for the will of the people was ignored.
Right.
So the Senate was under the 4 different Home Rule bills, acts. There was going to be an upper house recommended, kind of a Senate, but it was very weighted towards the minority. Right. The Protestant minority. So it was to offset basically Protestant losing a lot of power and actually having a voice in a very largely Catholic country. So that was the suggestion. So in December 22 was the first election, first Senate under the Free State. It was too dangerous having an election in because of the Civil War. So it kind of went along the lines of the Government of Ireland Act, and it was a lot of the appointees were Protestants, were Southern Unionists, people who would have been involved in the British administration. So there was some people had a big issue with that. But that was the Senate. It was selected. W.T. Cosgrave selected a lot of the people on that Senate. But then the first elections was actually this time, 100 years ago, September. So every 3 years, I think the people had to go for election by the people. That was under the Free State Constitution. But it was such a mess. There was such a low turnout. They just decided to.
So what is this? Excuse my six-county partitionist attitude, but what is it? How do I become a senator? Because some people are appointed to the Senate, aren't they?
So 11 are appointed by the Taoiseach.
By the Taoiseach.
So this is different now. So this is before the Seanad, which is under the 1937 Constitution, is different than the Senate.
Right.
So the Senate was under the Free State Constitution of 1922.
Right.
So it's a different entity. It's a different constitution. But De Valera actually banishes the Senate altogether because it's still very pro-establishment, pro-British. The Senate blocks his attempts to get rid of the oath of allegiance. So he actually bans the Senate through a vote in the Dáil in 1936. But then when he in his constitution, remember our conversation with Dev only a few weeks ago?
An excellent conversation.
If we do say so ourselves. But he under his constitution he creates this Seanad, and it was along this kind of corporationist kind of viewpoint of which is very popular within Catholic countries like Portugal, for example. That you'd have stakeholders from different industries, different vocations in the state.
People who know what they're talking about.
But it was mainly politicians though. Was it?
So
it was universities. So National University of Ireland and Trinity get to elect senators. And then it's kind of there's different panels, like there's one for commerce and industry, one for agriculture, and so on and so forth. But it's generally it's seen very much as a kind of a good ground to start your political career, or a good place to end your political career. So
at the minute,
home for internees or retirees.
Right. So at the minute, there are the Taoiseach has
11 of there's 60 members.
Right.
60.
He can appoint 11. Then the parties get the political parties get to.
Well, they, depending on their quota, what they got in the
and do they just nominate somebody and then you're a senator? That's it?
No, you go for elections. So there's elections, but obviously you'd have more say depending on how many votes you have. Say in the Dáil,
county councils. Who are the electors?
Yeah, county councils, parliamentary party members, the Dáil members. So that they're the ones who elect the senators, not the actual direct public.
Right.
So, but if you're a graduate from UCD or UCC or UCG, you get elected the members on the NUI panel, National University of Ireland panel.
Right,
if you're a graduate from Trinity College, same thing. You get to elect. The person or is it one person? I think two people from Trinity.
Yeah.
So it's many people see it's only about 1% of the actual electorate get to vote.
There was a chap whose name I forget, and maybe Jim will help us. There's a chap from Fermanagh, a unionist from Fermanagh.
Yeah,
who was appointed
Marshall, was it Marshall?
Yes,
Marshall. Yeah.
And then he didn't get re-elected recently.
Well, it wasn't. He was nominated.
He was
I think he was nominated by the Taoiseach, was he not?
I think he was nominated, but he didn't get elected.
But he wasn't
he was a senator, but
re-nominated.
he didn't get re-elected to the Senate.
I think he wasn't reappointed by because obviously the Taoiseach gets 11 appointments, so it's the Seanad changes when the Dáil changes.
Right.
So the whole makeup and obviously the 11 appointees change as well.
Right.
So
look, is there any money in it?
It's a paid job.
Well, you know the Taoiseach. He launched your book in Dublin.
Yeah, I know him so well. I'm going to go.
Could you have a word? Because I wouldn't mind being a senator.
This partitionist Tim McGarry wants to be.
Exactly. This is anti-partition. I'm prepared to cross the border into the 26 counties. Well,
how noble of you!
Not just for money.
Oh,
no. To give the people of the south of Ireland the benefit of my wisdom.
Let me get back to you on that. I'll take it under advisement.
Well, no, I would like a wee job in the Senate. I think that would be a great gig, would it?
Well, yeah, it seems less pressure anyway. But there are a lot of complaints about it. It's a talking shop. But you have to remember, some people, say David Norris, the independent senator in Trinity, he was for almost a lone voice on LGBTQ rights for decades. And was instrumental in getting the ban on gay rights overturned in the early 90s. So they have senators have made important contributions.
So they can make a contribution to the political debate because they're having the political debate.
Yeah, but they're also more freer. You often find the debates in Seanad more freer, say, than the kind of the whip system in the Dáil and the whole structures of the Dáil. So you can have some very interesting debates, very interesting comments, but their powers are very limited, though. So they really are, and they're a lot more limited than under the Irish 937 Constitution than they would have been under the Free State Constitution, even. So it's I think it's good. I personally think it's good that it's there. Yeah. And I think the electors believe that as well, even though it was a very tight vote. It was 52-48%. I think we've heard those numbers before, haven't we, in referendums?
Right.
52%, 48%. It's very tight, isn't it? Have the people spoken, really? I've heard that debate about another referendum.
No. Democracy's democracy, my friend. 50% plus one wins.
Yeah, exactly. 50 plus one, yeah.
Do you want the details on Ian Marshall?
Ian Marshall, that's the man, yes.
All right. Well, look, he was from Armagh, and he was president of the Ulster Farmers Union, a liberal unionist. And he lost his seat in the 2020 Shannon election. He was unsuccessful candidate in the 2021 Shannon by-election to the Agricultural Panel, which followed the resignation of Fine Gael Senator Michael W. Darcy. And he was again backed by Sinn Féin, but not Fine Gael. And this led Fintan O'Toole to lament in the Irish Times that it was much more important for the government parties to vote for one of their own than to place a single liberal unionist from Armagh in the Oireachtas.
I think that was the issue, that this was an olive branch, letting a unionist come to the Senate from the north in particular, and we know there's an issue about people in the north can't vote in, for instance, presidential elections and all that sort of stuff. And this was a gesture, and I think it was seen as a backward step that Ian Marshall wasn't.
Obviously, Gordon Wilson was a senator.
Yeah, so I remember John Robb. Do you remember Senator John Robb from the North, a surgeon from the north, around the New Ireland group? Sort of
I don't know.
No, he was a senator for quite a while as well.
So there have been a couple of, but then we look at the north, and there was a Senate in the north as well from 21 to 72.
There's a very plush Senate building in Stormont.
Yeah.
Very plush. It's lovely.
So but that was even kind of more, for want of a better term, useless than the one in the south. It was literally the actual the lower house, the House of Commons of the north, elected the Senate. Now I think the mayor of Derry and Belfast, they were automatically became senators, but the vast majority were
appointees by the.
And it was 52 MPs, and it was 26. 26.
And I presume no nationalists then. Do we have?
Well, I think we discussed recently about a podcast. One of the shows about
somebody applying for the.
And then they were, because of 12th of July holidays, they didn't get the votes in on time.
Didn't open the letters.
So therefore the nationals was discounted, basically. It was not very subtle, really. Was it?
No, not terribly.
There were some senators after that, but again, because it was such a unionist house that like Nationalist MPs, the nationalist senators had very little say as well. It was. And then it was obviously when direct rule comes in, the Senate goes with the House of Commons, goes with Stormont. You don't hear that a lot about Senate in the north. Obviously, Lord Londonderry was a senator. He's an interesting guy.
He's Lord Londonderry, the man who tried to introduce integrated education.
Yeah, so he's Minister of Education, but he wasn't actually an MP. He was actually the leader of the Senate. Right. And he obviously becomes more infamous, should we say, in the 30s as a
friend of
more, and even a friend of
Mr. Ribbentrop.
Ribbentrop was in Mount Stewart. Yeah. There's still a stormtrooper, isn't there? A sculpture.
A statue of a stormtrooper. Yeah.
And he was wined and dined by
a stormtrooper statue.
His wife said of Lady Londonderry said of Hitler, he's got the most beautiful blue eyes, Yeah. It was
probably his finest feature. Probably. But, listen, you're listening to the Irish History Boys with me, Tim McGarry, and Dr. Cormac Moore, the podcast where we explore Irish history inspired by what was reported 150 years ago, 100 years ago, and 50 years ago, and then not 150 years ago, but 100 and then 50 years
150
ago.
Years ago.
We could do it at the pages of the Irish News.
But I don't think the Irish News is around then.
No, it wasn't.
We've got a bit of a problem.
You can get in touch with us anytime on WhatsApp or email. Let us know if you have any questions. WhatsApp message or voice note to 07483313842, or drop us an email on irishhistoryboys@gmail.com. So the Senate is kind of like a House of Lords sort of influence, but kind of and the president of Ireland has very little power, which somebody should tell Conor McGregor, because he wants to be president, and he thinks he's going to, if he gets elected as president, he's going to do this, that, and the other.
Well,
and he's going to change the whole of Ireland, and he's.
It's too late for him now, isn't it?
Is it?
To get
Oh,
elected?
damn! Did he not make it?
Yeah, I think time is running out for Conor McGregor.
Okay.
This being the last week, a full week of September, you know.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, look, but I wouldn't just say about Conor McGregor, like the amount of candidates that for president, and not just this term, but for years have no idea what the
presidency
role,
is or what
function.
it's ceremonial, effectively, isn't it?
I know it does have, obviously it signs the laws,
but like the king does in England.
Yeah, exactly. But the president can, if the president thinks that there's something unconstitutional about a certain bill, he can or she can bring it to the Council of State. And even the Supreme Court.
Have they ever done that?
Oh yeah, they've brought loads of
really.
So and the Council and the Supreme Court can then rule on it. So and then a decision can be made. Either the bill has to be amended, or even removed, or it has to be signed by the president.
Right.
You know. So
but it's mainly
and the president can refuse to dissolve it all as well. So there are some kind of emergency powers the president has.
Yeah.
But it's very. I think it's the role is. It's very movable. It's fluid, you know, and we've seen over following recent decades that it has changed, you know.
Yeah. So, Michael D has got in trouble, hasn't he, for being a bit too political? Has he?
Yeah, like I personally would think that Michael D was the first term was very good. I still think he's done a lot of good things. Overall, he's been a good president, but this term in particular, he's gone beyond the boundaries. I think he's stretched it too much.
Of the constitutional boundaries.
Yeah, but like he's talked a lot about foreign affairs, which really is his job of the government, not the job of the president. And although we probably agree with a lot of what he says in most cases, what happens when there's a president we don't agree with?
Conor McGregor
comes to mind.
Yes,
but
I'd like to hear his views on the Israel-Gaza situation.
Well, he's pro-Israel.
No, I was joking. But I suppose Michael D sees himself as the conscience of the nation. Is that the idea that he?
But
you're right. If the next president
he set a dangerous precedent, I think, and particularly over the last couple of years, because he knows he's very popular. And he knows he's going to get away with it. He knows the government aren't going to do anything about it. Like there was a President Carola Dawley who was called a thundering disgrace by Fine Gael minister at the time, and actually resigned in '76 because he was so slighted and humiliated by a government minister. He resigned in '76. So you're not going to see that happening between now and the time that Michael D's term ends. But a lot of candidates presidents don't seem to understand the very limited constitutional role that the president have. It is very much a ceremonial role, but the person is the first citizen of the state, and there's a huge international dimension to it. There's a huge opportunity to kind of make the public, even the government, aware of certain communities, certain areas that often feel left out, and so on. So it's a very important role. Of
course,
and open up over the last
best
number of
president
years,
recently, Mary McAleese, of course. And do you know why?
Why?
Well, she brought us the Give Me Head Peace down to Aras and Uachtaráin, and to celebrate 10 years of Give Me Head Peace.
Did she?
She did indeed. We got a reception with the president.
But I do find the president often does a lot of useless things as well, like terrible ceremonies, wasting taxpayers' money on that.
So anyway, the bottom line is
actually speaking of Mary McAleese, like she would have experienced displacement as well, like from
Ardoyne, of course, from the Ardoyne.
Yeah. So
and of course, a very important moment inviting the Queen over and how she behaved with the Queen.
Yeah. Which I remember that in 2011. Like I actually at the time I lived very close to Phoenix Park, and it was a real pain to get from literally across the road. If the Queen was leaving Farm Lee, that's where she was staying in the Phoenix Park, and going into the city. Like you could be waiting literally to cross the road for about an hour.
Oh,
absolutely
God, love you.
Disgraceful.
God love you, the Queen of.
But it was a very triumphant visit, and it was a huge success. And unfortunately things haven't gone so well at Rosalie since then. Relations between Britain and Ireland and elsewhere.
But the bottom line on the Irish Senate is I am available. Okay, just if anybody has any influence, I am available. And at the end of my career, it'd be nice. It'd be a good
end of your career? You're only starting, Tim. What are you talking about?
Thank you very much. Listen, we got a question on WhatsApp that I'd like to read out.
I've heard this now.
No.
There was a clear typo in this question from Monday.
This is from Richard. Richard from Portadown, who describes himself as Protestant atheist and sceptical nationalist. But it's a lovely WhatsApp. Thank you, Richard.
That's some combination, isn't it?
And his message to us is, love the show, lads. good.
Yeah.
Good start.
A very good start, yeah.
But have to agree with Tim.
Gone down from there.
But have to agree with Tim that although Daniel O'Connell was a great man, he made Irish nationalism a predominantly Catholic goal. But of course, that was not his intent. I believe that his focus on Catholic emancipation, which obviously was fantastic and long overdue, polarised the island. In a nutshell, he couldn't do right for doing wrong. We discussed Daniel O'Connell.
And there has been a lot of debate on his 250th birthday.
Anniversary of his birth,
Yeah.
And I think I was making.
Do you know what? I'm going to polarize Ireland by us having equal rights. Like, so I won't do anything about that. It was an open sore, and it wasn't that Catholics were responsible for
the penal laws,
for the penal laws and their after effects. So
No, I think the argument is that Daniel O'Connell, because he had the Catholic rent and he was very associated with the Catholic Church, that when he went to he demanded repeal of the Act of Union. That the Act of Union by Unionists and Protestants was seen as the campaign against it was seen as a Catholic campaign.
But the Catholic Emancipation Campaign or the Catholic rent, all of those elements would not have worked without the support of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So was he just to ignore those and ignore the Catholic Church and the important role it played in society? So I just don't think that
O'Connell is to blame for it. But is that the period though that where nationalism becomes, because in 1798 you have which is only 30-40 years beforehand, you have the United Irishmen, you have Presbyterians in the north.
There's a lot of other things happening at the same time as well. Like the Presbyterians were becoming more satisfied with their lot. Under the Empire, under the Acts of Union, they say in Belfast becomes in the 19th century from a small town to the fastest growing city in the Empire. So it becomes hugely prosperous by the end of the 19th century. And by that stage, most Protestants, whether Church of Ireland or Methodist or Presbyterian, their kind of views had crystallized to be supporters of the Empire. So there's a lot of changes, not aside from nationalism being associated with Catholicism and the Catholic Church. There was a lot of other things happening as well that influenced Presbyterians and people who might have been open to a United Ireland.
I think they were burnt by the experience of 1798, where thousands of people were killed. There was massive upheaval, but also a lot of Presbyterians and people who were involved in the United Irish movement felt they were betrayed by some of the Catholic elements of them, particularly down south, where there were sectarian incidents in 1798. Protestants were attacked, so it wasn't all, this idealistic, Protestant Catholic dissenter for a republic, there was a sectarian element.
Like everything's grey and muddy, you can't just simplify things to saying that if Daniel O'Connell, hadn't involved the Catholic Church, we'd have United Ireland, or we wouldn't have the polarised sectarian kind of element to kind of the constitutional politics in Ireland. I just don't buy that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Richard.
Well, just you agree with him that he said you were right.
Yeah, exactly. He's a very wise, intelligent man. Thank you, Richard, for your question. As I say, if you want to get in touch, we are open to questions or any queries or comments or anything. Send us a WhatsApp message on 07483 313 842. I think I'm mispronouncing WhatsApp. Is it WhatsApp or WhatsApp? Anybody?
I think I would say WhatsApp.
WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not Budweiser ad. We won't go there.
Craig
I can't pronounce WhatsApp. And he can pronounce Craiga. Anyway,
I think I prefer to be able to pronounce WhatsApp to be with the young people.
Yeah. Will we finish with an interesting story from 1975?
I find it
not to do with
story.
Irish history,
no,
but it's the story of Patty Hearst. Patty Hearst reunited with her family in jail. Patricia Hearst, an heiress who joined the ranks of her revolutionary kidnappers, was reunited yesterday in an atmosphere of hugs and kisses with her father, the father she once denounced as a capitalist pig. Patty Hearst, this is a great story. It's a bizarre story in a way. Patty Hearst was born in 1954. She was 19 or 20. She was an actress, I think. And she
she became an actress. I don't think she was an actress.
Was she not at the time? Oh, I think so.
Okay. Maybe she was, but I know she subsequently got involved in movies.
Right.
She got out of prison and all that, and she got pardons.
And she was the granddaughter of
William Randolph
Hearst, and her.
Have you watched? I presume you watched Citizen Kane.
I have seen Citizen Kane. Yes.
Great movie, isn't it? It is a great movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah.
But obviously, it was based on William Randolph Hearst, the press baron.
So this bizarre left-wing group called the Symbionese Liberation Army. And
they were essentially communists, were they? I would say.
Yes, they were revolutionary leftists,
Yeah,
and kind of they're influenced by all sorts of things in '68 and the radicalism of '68. And they formed this little sort of
conclave,
and they kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Yeah. She was engaged, wasn't she, at the time, too?
I think she was engaged. I think she was quite young at the time. She was
19.
They kidnapped her and they demanded that her father provide $100 million of food
$400 million.
$400 million
at
of
the time
food
was
aid
an eye-watering amount of money.
to the poor in California.
I think they're meant to give them $70 each worth of food and groceries, basically, to the poor people of California, which came to, at the time, $400 million.
And I think they did give a couple of million, but they didn't give the full amount. So she was held captive for several months, and everybody went, "Oh, she's a captive of the Symbionese Liberation Army." And then the next thing we see is that Patty Hearst is caught on camera, robbing a bank
with a machine gun.
With a machine gun, with the Symbionese Liberation Army, and kind of joined up the Symbionese Liberation Army. Subsequently is arrested. There were other incidents. There were shooting incidents. I mean, they killed a couple of people. These guys
one woman, a customer in a bank was killed.
Yeah.
There was shootings, and then the leaders were in a shootout, got killed, and she wasn't there, and then she was ultimately arrested. Anyway,
she was arrested and charged.
But she also had made very disparaging comments against her parents as well.
Yeah.
She did call her dad a capitalist pig.
Right.
And I think she perhaps felt disillusioned also that they weren't making that much effort to get her back.
Is that right?
Maybe that because once he I think Randolph Hearst, the dad, once he offered it, was it, I think it was 1 million or 2 million, and that was a bit of a mess as well. The way it was distributed, it was very chaotic. That was it for him. Like, I'm not,
Yeah. So the whole issue
I've gone so far, I'll go no further.
Yeah.
And I think she definitely got disillusioned. Or it was claimed that she had a romantic relationship. The prosecution claimed she had a romantic relationship with one of the kidnappers.
Right.
Now, she said she was coerced and actually raped.
She said she was brainwashed.
And raped as well by this guy.
Right.
It definitely was a. Was it a case of Stockholm syndrome, or was it a case of
Stockholm syndrome, where you start to identify with your kidnappers and sympathise with the people who are holding you? And Though this is the classic case of it.
This is, isn't it? This is the most. And this was massive news. This was almost bigger news at the time than Watergate.
Yeah.
It was happening around this time. I think it was early '74 when she gets kidnapped, and she's basically
glamorous young woman, millionaires, left-wing terrorists, whatever. This is bound to be.
But we all know the repercussions of Watergate, and that was massive news as well. But this overtook it as its front page news and many days. So it was a massive news at the time, and it definitely. Struck a chord with the public, this story. And it is a fascinating story.
And she was convicted, just to say that. She was convicted. She tried to plead, no, I was brainwashed.
Yeah.
I didn't really sympathise with him. I was forced into being in the bank robbery. And I think there was some stuff about, the guns were pointed at her during the robbery, and that she she ran to the getaway car rather slowly in the hope of getting captured and stuff. But the prosecutor, the court didn't buy it, and she was convicted.
7 years she was given. And, but Jimmy Carter actually.
Jimmy Carter released her in February '79, so she only did 3 or 4 years.
And then she became a bit of a celebrity. She acted in movies. She wrote a book. She was I think she still is pops up every now and again. So she definitely became a celebrity out of it as well. And she was pardoned by Bill Clinton subsequently.
Yeah. Oh, was she fully pardoned?
Fully pardoned. Yeah. So I think a lot of people would say that she was brainwashed. That that her dad is what really happened.
Right.
Because there is some legitimacy to that, I think. Is there like how does a person go from our background? Some people said it was very severe in terms of it was quite cold, the upbringing. There was a governess there, and the mother was kind of hands off. The dad was a bit hands off as well. So. And
the grandfather wasn't the nicest man in the world, according to.
Yeah, I don't know. Was he alive?
I don't know.
Yeah, according to Orson Welles. Or Montgomery Burns, Rosebud. Yeah, I don't know, but a lot of people seem to think that, like it just seems so extraordinary that someone would go from, from this background and being kidnapped and the trauma of that, and then obviously become a supporter of this, this very kind of revolutionary, kind of left wing extreme group.
Yeah.
But she was on her own, like, and there definitely were opportunities for her to escape or alert the police.
Yeah.
On more than one occasions. Maybe she was so terrified, and maybe she was threatened so many times. We
I think
honestly don't know. This whole idea of Stockholm syndrome is real, though, isn't it? Like, people do get.
There have been subsequent cases of this. Of people who've been kidnapped by weird groups and then kind of start to identify with them. But this is the big. It's such a big story. It made the Irish news, and that's how important it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I actually
probably put the Gaelic off the back page. This one.
Like, I love the World Cup. It's my favourite sporting tournament, and because the Irish news are definitely going to cover the World Cup in '74. You know that famous 2-1 West Germany against Cruyff's Netherlands? Not a mention of it. Not a mention.
In the Irish news.
There's a horse racing and GA in the 70s were mentioned all the time.
Cross McLean Rangers, far more important than...
the World Cup, Soccer World Cup. It just shows, maybe that says more about the Soccer World Cup than it does about Irish news, or maybe more about both. But yeah, this was big news. Patty Hearst is... So this was September when she was caught, and she was met her parents for the first time in well over a year, probably a year and a half, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they met her with flowers, a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah. Mr. Hearst asked what he thought would happen to his daughter, said, I don't think much will happen. After all, she was a kidnap victim. But then, was she?
Well, she was prosecuted, but I know she was subsequently pardoned. So,
The Symbionese Liberation, that's a good name. This comes from symbiosis.
Yeah, and what was the guy called the Frey or something was the leader, and he was... It's some Sim Q1 or something like that was he's a
so she announced that she had decided to join the SLA, which turned out not to be a great career move. Don't join organisations like that. It's not great.
Don't join the SLA.
Don't join the SLA. Yeah. Where are they now? I think that's enough for this week. Thank you very much, Dr. Cormac Moore. I really enjoyed that, as always. See you next time on the Irish History Boys.
See you then.